Welcome back, everybody, to the Nimber Tribe podcast. Today we have Bo De Vries on the pod. She is a woman's health educator, a content creator, and innovator, and she helps women through hormone hacking to live their best life. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I'm so excited.
We're going to have an awesome conversation. I think a lot of women are going to walk away with this, understanding their body and their setup and everything that's going on so much better. So I'm very, very excited to have you on today. Can you just start us off with your origin story? What got you interested into hormone health, and how did you even, get into this topic in the first place?
Yeah, great question. And it's really nice because it goes literally back to when I was a baby. So to give you a little background is why I am in women's health right now. It started with my own health. I've had quite a hard health journey. Basically from when I was almost 3 months old, I was completely covered in eczema to the extent that my mom made, those baby suits. My mom had she added cloth around my hands because I was scratching myself open to bleeding. That was how intense it was. And so from very young on, I struggled with a lot of allergies. And then as I got older, these allergies became more. I had more and more things I was allergic to. It was sun allergy, then it was hay fever, perfume, certain foods like milk or gluten, things like that. And it just got worse and worse. And then when I was around 10, I started to get asthma as well, which is usually, it's common if you struggle with a lot of allergies to have asthma. So I still remember this one time where I would wake up in the middle of the night and I couldn't breathe and I had to go to the hospital to get extra oxygen. So it was really intense. I could not leave the house without my inhaler. Sports in school was very hard because I couldn't really run. I had to constantly use my inhaler. So that was quite hard. And then when I got into my puberty years, I started to get really severe acne. It started quite young when I was maybe still in elementary school. So I was 12. I started to get them first on my nose, and then my the T-zone, I got a lot of acne. And then it got really bad around my cheeks and around the chin. And so it was really intense, chronic cystic acne for more than 10 years. I struggled with that. Got especially worse around my, when I was 16 to 20, I would say. And so having had a lot of these health issues, and then compared with, when you get your cycle, I would have very intense mood swings, cramps, PMS. So I had a lot of that as well. So, I've always had a lot of health issues. And so every time when I would flare up, whether that was with acne, whether it was with eczema or whatever, we would always be thinking, okay, did I eat something new? Did I put on some new makeup? Was it this? Was it that? It's this constant sort of questioning and wondering. And that led to me developing something called orthorexia, where you're obsessed with healthy eating to the extent that you think everything is making you sick. I still remember this one call I had with a friend, and I was crying, and I said to her, in the water we have the metals that are causing me issues, and then in the air there's pollution, and then in my food there's pesticides. And it was I was just going crazy. I didn't want to go out for dinner anymore with people. I didn't want to be social anymore because I just had so much stress going to these events because I didn't know what I was going to be able to eat, because I thought I was allergic to anything. And then, for example, if I would be hungry, I would be okay, I want a banana. And then I was oh no, but the banana is going to give me hay fever. So, okay, no banana. And I would be oh, maybe a date with peanut butter. And I was okay, no, but the date is going to spike my blood sugar. And it was going like that. So I just didn't know what to eat anymore, And especially around that time, I would go, I was already starting to read into it a little bit and learn about it. And the more you know, the more you can't unknown, right? And so at the time, I wasn't sure what was causing my particular issues. So it was just, lots of that. And all of that stress compared with other things led me to burn out at 20. I was having severe panic attacks that lasted for half an hour, which is super, super scary. Yeah. I was having so much stress I couldn't fall asleep at night. It was really was really hard for me to sleep, and I couldn't walk up the stairs. If I would walk up the stairs, I had to lie down to rest. So the only thing I could do is I had to stop my studies for half a year. I took a break from school, and this was when I was in college. And I had to rest. And that was all I could do, which was super hard because I've always been very perfectionistic. I'd always been very ambitious. But even my passions and, my things that were usually would really excite me, they didn't excite me anymore. I honestly was like, what am I doing? I don't know what I want in my life. I felt very lost. So that was like the lowest point I had reached. And at that time, I was working at Rituals Cosmetics, and they actually talked a lot about yoga and meditation and like breath work. And that's what got me into that. And so basically, I had to learn to breathe. Because if you think about it, having had asthma, my breath would always be like very high up. So my voice was very high as well, especially when I would get excited about something, it would like, la, 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 like that. And so I had to learn to breathe and to kind of calm myself down and to lower my breath, because if you're constantly breathing up here, you're constantly in like a fight or flight mode, right, of your nervous system. So obviously I was constantly stressed. And what does stress to your gut? It's not good for your gut. And then what happens when your gut is not good? You get skin issues. So it was all connected to each other, but I just didn't know at the time. And so when I was burned out, I started doing yoga, started doing meditation, and it helped a lot. And then my boyfriend, he attended a presentation from a company, Natural Cycles, which is a Swedish company. They have an app. I use it to track my menstrual cycle. I use the Aura Ring now, but I started with just tracking my basal body temperature in the morning. But basically, he said to me, Bo, maybe you should stop with your medication because I don't think it's actually working. And to give you a background, like I was taking so much medication at this point, like antihistamines for my hay fever. I had the inhaler, I had eye drops, I had nose spray, I had creams, and obviously nothing was working. And I was at this stage in my life where I was like, I thought I was always going to have these issues. But being so low, you're like, okay, I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to try it naturally. And if that doesn't work, okay, then at least I tried. So I stopped everything cold turkey, quit the birth control, quit all the medication. I don't know if I would recommend that, but that's what I did. And so obviously when you stop all those things, the first thing that happens is you get everything back. So everything would get worsened because now I didn't have the medication to kind of calm it or heal the symptoms in a way. But because I started tracking my cycle naturally, I started learning about my body. And every time I learned something new, I was like, why didn't I know this about myself? These are basic things, how my body functions, how my biology works, how, that I can't get pregnant every day of my cycle, that when you're on the pill, the period that you're having is not an actual period, all those type of things. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know this. And so I started sharing it with my friends and I was like sharing it with them and they were like, I didn't know this, and it was like, isn't this weird that this is like basic things about how our body function and we don't know this about ourselves? And so that's what kind of started everything rolling. And I started sharing it first with the blog, then I did a little podcast, and it was just for fun. It was just to share. And I just got more passionate the more I learned while I was also healing my own body, mostly with foods, but also by cycle syncing, which we'll talk more about later in the podcast. But really like starting to listen to my body, making sure my body felt rested because my body needs to feel safe. And if it doesn't feel safe, that impacts my hormones, my cycle, etc. And so then when I graduated 1.5 years ago from my studies, which is something completely different because everything I had learned about women's health was in my own time and mostly by reading books, articles, everything, and just educating myself, I thought, okay, maybe I can like help other women because I felt at this point really, really good. Like I had healed my eczema, my acne was more or less gone until I would eat the things that I knew now that were triggering me. So it wasn't like it's gone because if I eat, for example, a lot of gluten or I eat a lot of sugar or the things that trigger me, it just comes back. But I figured it out and I thought, okay, maybe I can help other women. So that's when I started coaching women a little bit. Just wanted to try that out. But I noticed that my true passion was creating content and like educating women via online platforms. And so that's what I've been focusing on. And that's kind of where we're now. So I've been first started on Instagram and then my friend was like, why don't you start on LinkedIn? And I was like, I don't know if am I going to talk about periods on LinkedIn? That seems a bit weird. But I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just give it a try because I love to write and that was more what I was interested in. So I ended up I've been writing about periods on LinkedIn for the past 6 months, and it's amazing. Like the engagement I've gotten, the women I've helped, which is just so much fun. And yeah, last week I hosted my first women's health event here in Stockholm, which was so awesome. Like we got more than 40 women signed up. We had amazing sponsors that sponsored the event. It was like the energy was amazing, and the feedback afterwards was just like, you know, women really want to learn about their bodies. And yeah, so that's where we're now. So really, like, what got me into women's health was my own health journey. And I think a lot of women do that. They go through these issues and then they turn their pain into their purpose, which I think is awesome about women in general. But female empowerment had always kind of been throughout my life into the other things that I was doing. But it was really like that connection with helping women within their health and well-being that kind of like came together. And that feels like my ultimate passion. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little thing there which says unlock the female potential. I made that like 4 or 5 years ago. And that's basically my mission. That's all I am about.
I love that so much. And there are so many parallels. And I think it is kind of interesting because for me, it started around like age 10 with like a lot of headaches, and then it went into the gut and then the allergies and all of that. So a lot of stuff I can relate to very, very well, unfortunately. But I think it is really interesting because then we build this kind of knowledge bank. And for me as well, like I am self-taught, so I took information from everywhere, if it was like studies, if it was podcasts, books, like all of that. And you build a very unique worldview kind of through that. I think it's very different from like how a doctor sees the world, for example. And yeah, there's a big impact that can be made than teaching other people who have some of these things going on as well, and just like educating. And I think you do that so beautifully. Like I'm your biggest fan on LinkedIn, like always commenting, because yeah, I just love the content that you're putting out, and I think there's so much value in there. So thank you for doing what you're doing, first of all.
I mean, you know, your comments and people like responding to it makes me want to keep going. And I think, you know, that's what I've loved so much also about LinkedIn, that I get more of that engagement and that community feeling that people really appreciate it, which has been amazing. And I love what you say, because when I was teaching or like when I was like coaching women a little bit, I definitely felt sometimes like, oh, but I don't have like I didn't do a course, or I didn't do a certification, or, you know, things like that I think a lot of women maybe, are held back by that. But I think the best thing is talking from experience. And that's what I had, you know, I learned everything from, like you say, from books and all these sources, and then applying it to myself. And also, like, when I was coaching, and I'm not longer doing that, but when I was doing that, I always spoke from my own experience. So I wouldn't necessarily give advice based on something that I didn't have experience with. And I think that made it very authentic, because people could really relate to me because I've been through the same thing. I've been where they were. And I think that's a more powerful thing. There is more of a connection when you see someone, they're like, they are where you want to be, and they know the path, and you just follow along. And, you know, but just, you know, another thing is like something that might work for me might not work for you. And that's also what I want to emphasize, and what I teach is I teach women to find what works for them, and not to just follow something you find online.
100%. Yes, I love that. Kind of going from here, like you talked a little bit, for you it was like meditation and breath work in the beginning, and I think there's a lot of like a stress component, at least there was for me. Like I've always been this like high achiever, wanted to get the best grades, like always going for the top 1%, and that really had an impact on my body. Like my body was like, we're not doing this anymore, like this is not fun. So I really needed to start with kind of that stress component, and then look more into like hormones and eating and all of these different things that we're gonna get into doing this podcast. But if someone would come to you and they have these kind of random symptoms, often it doesn't make sense from a healthcare perspective. Like a lot of the people coming to me, their blood work looks kind of okay, like the stuff that they are checking, it kind of, the doctors are just like, I have no idea what to do with you, like it looks okay, just go home, drink some water and like get some rest. What would you do with someone that is presenting this way, and how did you kind of solve it for yourself first?
I think it's really good that you mentioned the stress component, and that it gives all these weird symptoms. And I think it depends on the people and how stress shows up in your body. But if you think about it, the main thing for a woman's body is to feel safe. Because if your body doesn't feel safe, it's not going to prioritize making a baby, which is the whole purpose of the menstrual cycle of the female body if you look at a biological perspective. But when our body is not feeling safe, aka we're in a fight or flight mode, your body wants to, keep you safe. So it's not gonna think, now is a good time to have a baby while we're running from a bear. And obviously we're not running from a bear. We're stressed at work, or we have too much social pressure, or, there's all these stressors. And I think that was really good for me to realize that my body was just running on stress, and that stress was impacting my gut, it was impacting my hormones, it was impacting my skin, everything. But the importance was stress kind of comes from so many different things, right? You can get stressed if you eat too much or too little, or if you exercise too much or too little, or if you have the mental stress, or if you breathe not properly. And there's so many things that could stress and put stress on you. Even sometimes I think, going on vacation, that's relaxing. Well, not for your body, because the whole environment is new. So your body's constantly scanning for, threats, potential threats. You usually have no routines. You usually eat things that you wouldn't normally eat that impact your body in a different way. So even a vacation that might seem like something that is, restful, it's actually a big stressor. So I think the key thing that I would always do is calm the body. And that's in multiple ways. And I think for women, what's very important is routine, is doing something regular. So eating, for example, 3 proper meals a day, making sure those are filled with good protein, healthy fats, good carbs, stuff like that. But making it regular, going to bed at the same time every day, waking up at the same time every day. Those routines are actually very comforting for the body, because the body doesn't have to constantly guess, when am I going to eat? When am I going to sleep? And that regularity brings, again, calmness to the body. So that's something I would recommend always, is making sure that your body feels safe by, getting routines into your lifestyle. And then another thing is, and we'll get more into that, but depending on where you are in your cycle, your body can handle different things better or worse. So the first part of the cycle, our body is more stress resilient, so we can handle more stress from exercise, from certain foods, or from work pressure. And then there's another part of our bodies that can't deal with stress so much and is a lot more stress sensitive. But a lot of women, we are high achievers, we are performers, we want to do the best every single day. And so in some parts of our cycle that works great, and we can totally go on with that. And in some parts we don't, and that's when we get the anxiety, we get the PMS and all these other issues, because our bodies are not actually meant to do the same thing every single day. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, is 1, make your body feel safe, and that can be done in multiple ways. But 2, really adapt to your lifestyle, to your cycle. That's been a game changer for me, because we as a woman are not the same every single day. A man is, but a woman is not. And the problem is that so much health advice out there is based on the male body and not on the female body. And so I had a friend, and she thought she was being healthy. She was vegan, she was exercising a lot, she was fasting, she was doing cold exposure. All those things are supposed to be good for you, but she was in terrible, she wasn't doing good at all. She had low energy, she had a lot of acne, mood swings and stuff like that. And so even though she was working out a lot, you couldn't really see it, because her body was very stressed. Even if she didn't necessarily felt stressed. And I think that's a key thing to remember. Even though you might not feel stressed, that doesn't mean you're not being stressed. And so what we did with her was, again, I said to you, have to make your body feel safe. So routines is key. And then also the things that she was doing, don't do them every single day. Fasting, again, is a stressor. Cold exposure is a stressor. Even if they're seen as good things, they are stressors. So I think that's a key thing.
100%. I love how you just summarized all of that. And also the awareness around your body needs safety. I think that is so important. And then to realize how many different types of stress there are. There are chemicals, there are work-related issues, there are emails, there are relationship issues. There's so many different things that can add to stress. And it's not just that you have an appointment and your calendar is kind of booked. There's so much more that is going on, and to really get clear on what's happening, and then to be very mindful if you want to add an extra stressor as a CrossFit workout or whatever it might be, or the cold plunge or the fasting, or is there really room for this right now, or do I need to roll back a little bit on a few things so I can then add kind of a I don't want to call it a healthy stressor, but like a stressor that can get an adaptation that is quite helpful sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's the key what you said. A lot of women, we have already such a high stress level, and then adding these good stresses, right? Because exercising is a good stress. It is, again, for your body, it's just a stressor, even if it's a good one and it has many benefits. So it's like, make sure that you lower that like stress level, that base stress level, and then you can do things like, for example, when I was 4 years ago burned out, like I couldn't do running, one because of the asthma, of course, but also because I didn't have the energy, and there was just way too much stress for my body. But now, 4 years later, my body is in a really good state. I have a lot of energy, and last week I ran a half marathon and I recovered very quickly. I had the energy for that, and I mean, it was super hard, don't get me wrong, but like I could do it because my stress levels are generally quite like low. And so it's not like you can't do those things that, like fasting and cold exposure, because they have a lot of benefits. But if you already are in a very high stress level, then it's just added stress, and that just gets too much.
Yes, I love that. And you also mentioned that we have a different stress resilience depending on the phase of the cycle that we're in. So can we break that down into kind of bite-sized bits and pieces? And even you said like the first day of your cycle, what does that mean? And then can we kind of take it from there?
Yeah, definitely. My favorite part to talk about. So I always like to say the phases of your cycle are kind of like the seasons outside. And I think that's a really easy way to understand what's going on in your body, how that's making you feel, and what you can best do. So just how you do different things depending on the outside season. Like in the summer, you want to go out and swim in the lake. But in the winter, you want to cozy up and have a hot chocolate, right? So depending on where you are in the season is what you want to do different. And it's the same with your cycle. So biologically speaking, you have two phases, but because your hormones go up and down, we kind of distinguish into four phases. So the first day of your cycle is the period or menstruation. And that can usually last between 5 to 7 days. That's kind of like a approximate. And this is when your hormones are all at their lowest level. Because what happens during the menstrual cycle is actually the main thing about the menstrual cycle is not your period, it's ovulation. So the goal is to ovulate and make you pregnant, basically. And so in order to do that, in the first part of your cycle, which starts from the first day of your cycle during your period until ovulation, is your body is preparing to release an egg. And so that's one thing that happens. And the second thing is happening is the lining in your uterine, which is what you bleed out in your period. That's supposed to feed and host the fertilized egg. So if you do get pregnant, the egg is going to sit in there and it's going to be nourished until the placenta is ready. And so that's what happened in the first phase of your cycle. It's this building up phase. And I'll go into specifically what happens. But then you have ovulation, which is the peak. That's when the egg is released. And the egg survives usually around 24 to 48 hours, but usually 24 hours. But sperm can survive for 5 days in your body because your body keeps it alive. So usually you have a 6-day window, 5 days before your ovulation and 1 day after. So that's like the window you could get pregnant. And then after ovulations, changes happen again in your hormones. Your progesterone rises, and that makes sure that the uterine lining stays so that the egg can be hosted there. And then if your body figures out we did not get pregnant, it says, okay, we did our job, and it releases everything, and that starts your period. So the first phase of your cycle is your period, 5 to 7 days. And this is like your inner winter. So this is the time of your cycle where all your hormones are lowest. You're going to feel probably a little bit less energized, so more tired. If you feel extremely tired, this can be because you're losing iron. So you have to make sure that you fill up with iron. I love to say, even if you don't want to eat a lot of animal protein, just having a steak on the first day of your period can do so much. Because it's a very good way for your body to absorb extra iron. But also leafy greens are really important source of iron. So this is the part of your cycle where you want to take it easy because your body is working hard to release what no longer is needed, basically. So it's like a detox phase, but it's also a new phase. It's also like a build up. But first you let go and then you build up, right? So the winter is a great time to think about the new cycle, what you want to invite in that cycle and what you want to let go. And so when it comes to food and exercise, it's a great time here to rest. to rejuvenate. I usually don't work out during my cycle. I usually maybe do a little bit of yoga, do some gentle walks, meditate maybe, but really take it easy, especially the first 3 days, because actually training, for example, doing ab work could actually put more pressure on your uterus, making your menstrual cramps worse. So, and another thing is, my rule in this part of your cycle is to do only things that give me energy and nothing that drains my energy or takes my energy, because my energy is already so low. As we move on from the period, we get into the follicular phase. It's a very difficult name, but basically just remember the F. F stands for first. It's the first phase of your cycle. And so in this phase, we're building up. So the hormones are starting to rise, especially estrogen. And estrogen is like your queen bee hormone. So it makes you feel energized, motivated, confident. It gives you more glow. It gives you more... makes you more extroverted, so you want to be more social. And this is basically like the inner spring part of your cycle. So this is when things start to bloom. The sun is coming out, giving you more energy. So it's a great time to be social, to do things with others, to go out and step out of your comfort zone. I just did a post about that today. I tried CrossFit yesterday, and I'd never done it before, and I was absolutely terrified, but I knew I would do it in my follicular phase, because this is the time of my cycle. It's more easy for me to get out of my comfort zone. It's more easy to socialize. I'm going to feel more energy. We'll cover quicker from workouts. This is time you can push yourself when it comes to training, because you have the energy, but you also have estrogen that helps to recover the muscle after you break it down. So this is a great time to do that. When it comes to food, particularly in this phase of your cycle, you want to aim for light foods. So fresh salads, fermented veggies, lean protein, because the heavier you eat, the more tired you're going to feel. So you have to make sure you eat, good sources of the things I mentioned, but you want to eat more lean and fresh things to give you that natural energy. And then we get to the third phase, which is the ovulation. And this is when you are in your inner summer phase. So everything you love to do in the summer, you want to do during ovulation. Usually your energy is highest, motivation is highest. You get a little shot of testosterone, which gives you more confidence, gives you more strength. So this is a great time to set new PRs, to push yourself in the gym, or to do that long run, because you're going to recover quick. You have more capabilities of building muscle due to testosterone. And so this is a good phase in your cycle to start to eat a little bit more, because you might start already get a little bit more hungry. But this is the part of your cycle when basically things are at highest. If you're dating, this is a good time to have your first date. It's a good time to go out and socialize, because you're going to want to dress up more. You're going to feel more outgoing. You're going to feel more social. So it's a great time for that. And then we go to the last phase. And this is usually the most challenging phase for women. And this is where, PMS, premenstrual symptoms, can arise. And the reason I will explain, but this is the luteal phase, also known as the last phase, or your inner autumn. And just how when autumn is coming, leaves start to fall, it's getting a little bit more darker, it's going to be dreary, you want to stay indoors, you get a little bit more introverted, you maybe don't feel so social. This is a part of your cycle when progesterone rises and estrogen goes down a little bit. You might get in the beginning a little bit of estrogen, which helps with your mood, but then at one point it will go down and you have more progesterone. In general, actually, progesterone is like a calming hormone. So it's normal that you feel a little bit more calm, more introverted and things like that, maybe a bit more sensitive or vulnerable. But the reason that a lot of women struggle is because when cortisol rises, progesterone goes down. Cortisol is your stress hormone. Most women have stress, but estrogen can fight stress. Progesterone does not like stress. So this is the phase of our cycle where we are stress sensitive. So any type of stress, right? We talked about the different forms of stress, but in this part of your cycle, challenges arise because your body is not so forgiving and can't handle stress the same way. So here it's even more important to, for example, I notice in this part of my cycle, I can be quickly irritated towards my boyfriend, for example. And that is a sign for me that I need to spend more time with myself, doing more self-care, more me time. I also noticed, this is very interesting, when I'm talking with my friends, if I would go out and just have a tea, and I'm talking a lot, my throat gets dry, and that's always a sign for me that I'm talking too much. And it's like my body saying, yeah, we get it now. Let's calm down now and just listen. So it doesn't mean you can't be social, you just want to change it a little bit. This is a time where it's good to ask for a little bit more support, take it a little bit easier, and also to eat more. And this is crucial, because what happens in this part of your cycle is this uterine lining that your body's been building up, it's kind of making sure it gets all the nutrients, so that when the embryo or the egg hosts itself there, it gets nourished and it can grow. And so a lot of this uterine lining, your period, actually contains like amino acids and building blocks. So your protein goes there, you need healthy fats to make the hormones and stuff like that. But also your metabolism changes, and so you burn 300 more calories in rest. So without doing more, you burn more. And that means that you will get more hungry. And so it's really important to eat more. And that means more quality fats. I usually aim for a little bit more fatty protein. So maybe aim for more fatty fish like salmon, or fatty animal protein like pork or beef, things that have a little bit more body. But also some good slow burning carbohydrates or nature carbs. So think sweet potatoes are amazing. Just adding a bit of that is really going to help you with your cravings, because a lot of women struggle with cravings in this part of their cycle. And that is just your body telling you, I need more food. I need more nourishment. And that is the key thing I want to mention is PMS, premenstrual syndromes. That is not the root cause. That is a symptom. And a symptom is a signal from your body trying to tell you something. Something needs attention. Something is out of balance. And when I realized this helped me so much, because I stopped being angry with my body and I started getting curious. Okay, I'm getting this headache. What does that mean? Oh, maybe I need to increase this or that. And so your body's constantly talking with you in signals, aka symptoms, not in words. It cannot speak. Bit annoying, but you just got to find a way to understand, right? And decode these symptoms. So let's talk about cravings, right? So cravings means your body needs more nourishment, needs more carbohydrates. Give your body that. You will not gain weight. Trust me, it's not gonna happen. Your body needs it. So that's one thing. Another thing is mood swings, right? We struggle with mood. A lot of women can feel maybe more anxious, more depressive, more emotional. And where it's normal to feel a little bit more vulnerable and sensitive, it's crucial here to, express those emotions, because otherwise your period can be quite heavy. But it's key to remember that feeling anxious can actually be due to too much cortisol, and especially the week before your period, because this is when progesterone and estrogen goes down. Estrogen is connected to serotonin, your mood booster. That's why we struggle more with our mood. And progesterone is our calming hormone. So when both of these goes down the week before our periods, that's when we feel most anxious, especially if cortisol is high, because cortisol makes us stressed, overwhelmed, anxious. And so doing things like breath work, meditation, yoga can really help to calm yourself. When it comes to working out, this is an important time to take it a bit easier. It doesn't mean you cannot work out, but you have to make sure that you take it easier, because your recovery is slower. I could truly see this on my HRV, my heart rate variability. I track that with my Oura ring, and I can see that in the luteal phase it's much lower. So that means that my body is, my recovery after workouts is much slower and lower, which means I'm going to feel more tired during workouts. Your strength goes down too, because you don't have testosterone as much, you don't have estrogen as much, and these give you more strength. So a lot of women that are like bodybuilders, but even if you just lift weights in the gym, you'll probably notice that in this part of your cycle, your strength goes down a lot. And so that's what you kind of want to be thinking with working out, is just to start taking it easier and do more things that give you energy versus things that drain your energy. Because your energy is going down. That's normal because of your hormones. But if you feel very fatigued, sleep more. A lot of women notice a big impact when they sleep just an hour more in this part of their cycle, or take a nap during the day. It really helps. Another crucial thing that I would just like to add is avoid caffeine in this part of your cycle. I never drank caffeine. I'm not a coffee drinker whatsoever, but I know a lot of women are. And the thing is, caffeine raises your cortisol levels. And so in this part of your cycle, we are more sensitive to stress and to cortisol. So avoiding caffeine in general, a lot of women notice so many improvements when they cut out caffeine or coffee in general, like completely. But if that's too much of an ask, then I would say start with cutting it out the week before your period or the 2 weeks before your period, because it can really improve your symptoms, because it does rise cortisol. The same with making sure that you balance your blood sugar. Very important. So a few simple ways to do that is in the morning, start your breakfast savory. Aim for good protein, some good fats, not so much carbohydrates because they will spike your blood sugar. And when you start your morning with something sweet, it gets you on that blood sugar roller coaster that's gonna drop you down, and then your energy goes up and down all the time. You need to eat every 2 hours because your body's running on carbs versus on fats, which gives you long-term energy. So I would say those are a few things you can do to avoid these PMS symptoms. And again, when you have PMS, think about it. Okay, I am having this. What is my body trying to tell you? A lot of times women intuitively know, but we've been taught to ignore these signals, to ignore this inner voice, and to listen again to what other people are saying. So, things like fast and cold exposure, don't do it in this part of your cycle because it puts too much stress on your body. Do it in the other part, and in this part, take it easier. Go for warmth. Make sure your body is warm. And that will help a lot. So adapting, that's kind of what cycle syncing is. And what I talk about when I talk about hormone hacking, it's adapting your lifestyle to fit the hormones. So going with your hormones and how they change your body versus going against it, which really improves how you feel. And realizing that as a woman, you are cyclical. You're not the same every single day because of these changing hormones. They impact everything from your skin to your energy to your motivation, your willpower, you name it. And so it's crucial that you also adapt your lifestyle, your food, your movement, your social life, etc. to it. And it doesn't have to be complicated. And just think about the seasons, like just feel what feels naturally good. If you're in your period, does it really feel good to do that extreme HIIT workout? Like, do you honestly feel good from that? Probably not. So maybe not do that in that part of your cycle.
100%. Oh, so much good stuff in here. And I'm always like mind blown that we don't learn this in school or I don't know where else, but like there's so little education. And I was one of these women. I had like one good week a month. Yeah. Like the rest was just shitty. I had mood swings. I was in pain. Like it was not fun. So yeah, I had to kind of get into these kind of things that you were talking about. And the shift is amazing. And it's not that complicated. Like once you kind of get the hang of it, it gets kind of second nature. But I think one thing that is very, very helpful is to really track where you are in your cycle. Yeah. Because I can still have those days where I feel like the voice in my head is kind of very dominant, like it's not saying super nice stuff. And then I just need to remember like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get my period in roughly 2 days. So maybe I just don't listen to that voice too much today because it probably like doesn't speak the truth. So I think that can be so helpful to just have it in an app, like you said, with the Aura Ring. I love that one as well. Or to just write it down on a piece of paper or in your calendar, whatever it is. So you kind of have an overview of like, where am I right now? Why am I experiencing these different things? And like you said, like these symptoms are your body's way of communicating with you. Yeah. So give it the advantage of really listening.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I think one more thing that's important to know is that what I've been talking about, the cycle, is like the perfect cycle, right? And so we don't live in a perfect world, and we have, everything, so many things impacting our lifestyle and on how we feel. So I think it's also crucial to just say that even if you're ovulating and you're maybe supposed to feel your best, that doesn't mean you will feel your best, right? I mean, even your ovulation experience can be different depending on the season outside. Like in the winter, it can be very different than in the summer. We know the weather impacts us. We know, if we go through a period of our lives where there's just a lot of sadness because of things that happened, obviously your whole experience is going to be different. But this is like a general idea of if your hormones are balanced, this is what's gonna, like how it's going to impact you. But there's so many things, like your hormones are sensitive. So there's so many things that can impact your hormones. I always have to be mindful about that, because I have moments also in my cycle where I'm like, but I'm supposed to be feeling great right now because I'm ovulating. Why do I feel so insecure? Why do I feel so this? And it's like having that self-compassion, like just because it's not like you're supposed to feel that way. It's just that that's the general thing you can be feeling, but there's so many things impacting you, right? Like if you have a poor night's sleep, of course you're going to feel tired the next day, whether you're ovulating or not. So that's just a little thing to remember.
Yes. 100%. You talked a lot about food while you were kind of mapping out these different phases, and I know that food is kind of a big part of like what you're talking about. Is there anything more to add in terms of like having a hormone-friendly kitchen? Is there anything more that we should think about when we prepare ourselves?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, so it's fun because always when I love to cook for my friends. And so always when I invite them over for dinner, I always ask them, where are you in your cycle? And I kind of change what we eat depending on where they are to support their bodies. And I think that there's many things that impact the hormones in a positive or negative way. And one of the things is the temperature of the food and how the food is prepared. So during your period, you want to aim for warm foods and cooked foods and maybe more spiced foods. Anything that increases warmth, because warmth is going to help your body with the blood flow. When your body is very cold, this can be cold hands, cold, lower back, things like that. It all can disrupt the flow of the blood, and that could cause more menstrual cramps because it's the uterus that needs to work way harder to let go. So warmth is very crucial in this part of our cycle and during the period. Then another thing is very important, and if we look at the follicular phase, what I mentioned a little bit before is more light and fresh food. So after the period, I don't go from warm and cooked foods to raw salads like after the period, because raw salads are actually quite hard to digest. So when we get out of that period, I aim for more maybe half. So I love to make salads that maybe have some raw veggies and then they have some cooked veggies and then maybe they have something cold and they have something warm. And to make it more, I don't know, like room temperature, So it's not ice cold, but it's also not fully cooked. That can be very nice for your body. When you're ovulating, that's when your temperature rises. So after ovulation, kind of around that time, your temperature will go up a little bit. This is because of progesterone. And so in this part of your cycle, you want to aim for more cooling foods to kind of lower that body temperature. So then it can be nice to have those fresh salads, like make your own poke bowls and stuff like that. Can be really good. Also, because you have all these amazing hormones during ovulation, this is a great time to go out for dinner and maybe have something that's not as good for your body. But you just want to have a good time. You want to have a pizza with your friends or go for burgers. Like, I don't say no to that either. I like 80-20 and that's all good. And your hormones can totally deal with that. But especially during ovulation, your body can really deal with that. So that's a good time to kind of plan that in that phase. And then when we get into the luteal phase, it's very important to start warming up the food again. Things that are more easy to digest. So cooked foods are in general more easier. It can be really good to cook vegetables, because when you cook vegetables or like fry them in the oven, they actually get more sugary. So they are more sweet. So for example, if you would eat a raw paprika versus you eat a paprika up in the oven, it tastes sweeter. And so that's because it just gets more sugary. And that's really good because we want those natural sugars in this part of our cycle. Also eating more. And you will notice that in this part of your cycle, you'll probably get more hungry. But then as soon as your period starts, you will notice your food, maybe not the first 2 days, but then at one point when you get in the follicular phase, you won't need as much food. And so it feels better to eat more light things and more lean protein. And if you want to do fasting, for example, that's a great thing to do, like kind of from the period until ovulation. So that's, and if you really want to know how many hours of fasting should I do when, then I really recommend Fast Like a Girl from Mindy Pelch. It's an amazing book. It's really, really good. And it tells you exactly how to fast like a girl, basically. But avoid fasting in your luteal phase because, one, it increases cortisol too much, and two, you already need more nutrients and you need more calories. So if you're done fasting, it's much harder to get that. So that's like more food related, and also temperature and how you should cook your food. When it comes to creating a hormone-friendly kitchen, It's also important to know what we said about the stressors. There's a lot of endocrine disruptors. Those are basically things that disrupt your hormones because they connect to the receptors in your body and they mimic hormones like estrogen or progesterone. And that can cause imbalances. So think about the things you're cooking on, aiming for pans that are like steel, for example. They don't leave this little like toxic materials. Cutting on wood instead of plastic. Warming up your food in a glass container versus a plastic container. I like to drink from a metal bottle or from glass so I don't get the plastics in. So those are just a few things to also think about when you're, preparing your kitchen. And I mean, honestly, there are so many things that can disrupt your hormones, and it can be really, really like stressful and frustrating when you're trying to cut out these things. So I'm still working on it. I still don't have the perfect hormone-friendly kitchen either. Because I can't just like buy everything new because I'm just learning about it. So every time, maybe every month, replace one thing, or when your dishwasher, runs out, maybe go buy one that's a little bit more natural, has more natural perfumes, like more essential oils, things like that. Be easy on that because it can be very hard. It can cause a lot of mental stress, and then that's just gonna impact your hormones way more than that particular toxic or chemical might do to you. So those are things I would say about creating a hormone-friendly kitchen is adapting what you eat when, but also thinking about temperature of the food, how to cook the food, and then how you cook the food with. So what materials you use for that.
Yes, so much good stuff in there. And I love that little note of grace maybe in there to be like, it doesn't need to be perfect right now. Like you can slowly build this up and get more into it and read up on it. So yes, I love that. This was such a lovely conversation. Is there anything else that you would like to add or like leave women who are listening with before we tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes, I would just love to say that a lot of the health advice out there is based on the male body. Women have been excluded from clinical trials, from research for many, many years because of these hormones that make it quite hard to study our bodies. And I'm so happy to see that there's more and more research coming and being done now on women, which is super important because, a lot of these things that we mentioned already before, like fasting, like cold exposure, and certain diets like keto, for example, they impact the female body differently because we are not the same every single day. And so what I always like to say is, you are not a small man. Don't treat yourself like you are a small man. Treat yourself like you're a woman and you need different things. And I remember when I started learning about these things and told my boyfriend, like, he was like, no, men and women, we're the same. We have a brain, we have organs, like our bodies do the same thing. Yes, but our hormones change how we are. And I mean, the female body has a very different purpose, biologically speaking, than a male body. And so when it comes to all this health advice out there, the thing I would recommend, if you get stuck on knowing what is good for you and what is not, and I definitely had that. I tried so many diets, like I tried everything and so many products and things like that. The best thing you can do is experiment, because like we said before, your body is constantly talking with you. So if you want to know if you can handle Greek yogurt, or if you can handle peanut butter, or if you can handle HIIT training, whatever it is, try it out. Experiment for a while. See the feedback your body gives you. And so you have to listen to your body and learn to just tune in and just sit and like, I just had yogurt and now I'm bloated. Maybe that's because I just had yogurt. I know, for example, that I don't do well with yogurt. And it's to the extent that if I walk in the supermarket and I'm thinking like, I kind of want yogurt, and I walk towards it, my body is like, nah, I don't want it. It's very strong now because I'm very in tune with my body, but that takes time. But I know, for example, I hadn't been eating peanut butter for a long time. And then last week I tried it and I started to get rashes. And I was like, interesting. So I stopped eating it again and now they're gone. And so your body is constantly talking with you. And it can be very overwhelming with all this different health advice out there. But the best you can do is just try it, see how it makes you feel. Do you get any symptoms that you're maybe not used to? Obviously, it's best to track it. Try one thing at a time. I'm one of those persons that tries like new things, like 3 at a time. So I'm telling this to myself. But the best thing you can do is trying one thing at a time. Try it for an extended period of time. And then just see, do you notice any differences? Do you feel more tired? Or is your skin looking better or worse? Like, whatever it is, you know? So I think that is the most important thing that I would just like to add, that one thing is symptoms are just signals from the body. So don't get angry. Your body is telling you, you should be grateful, you know? Even if it's annoying that you get a headache after a night of partying, I mean, your body just doesn't love it so much. Doesn't mean you can never do it. It's just good to remember that it's just your body telling you, hey, that was fun, but let's start taking care again of ourselves. And then, of course, experimenting and just seeing what works for you and finding what works for you, because your body will tell you.
Yes, such a good note to end on also. Bo, can you tell everyone where they can go if they want to find out more about you, if they want to follow along on your journey? Where can they find you?
Yes. So I create female-focused health, wellness, and productivity advice or content from Monday to Friday on LinkedIn. So you can find me there. We'll probably add the link as well in the notes. But it's Bo De Vries. That's my name. And just look at me there. If you see something pink, that's me. And you can also find me on Instagram. I'm going to start becoming a little bit more active there. And then you look for Flow with Bo. That's my handle there, but we'll link that as well.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah, so that's where you can find me. And if you ever have any questions, or you want to know what good resources to look into, or you just want to have a call or whatever, just message me. I'm very open for any new connections, or, this is my favorite topic to talk about. So ask me anything you want and I'll be happy to help out.
Awesome. And as you said, we're going to have all of that linked below for everyone to check it out. I would highly, highly recommend to do so. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. And great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, tribe. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and a comment below. There's going to be new episodes dropping every Wednesday, covering everything from entrepreneurship to health, basically giving you all the tools that you need to peak perform in business and in your life. So please make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. This is a one-woman show. There is no network, there are no sponsors, and there is no editing team behind this. So it's up to me and you to spread the word about it. So if you have a friend who might benefit from what you learned today in this episode, please make sure to share a link with them. I see you next Wednesday. Much love.